Hello, everybody. Welcome, viewers, to the series Exploring Careers in Data Analytics. So my name is John Cambefort. I'm a class of 2021.5, so I just graduated from Middlebury College, and I'm hoping today to introduce this episode's guest speaker, Raffie Parke. So I'm joined today by Raffie. Raffie, you graduated in 2013 as a psychology major from Middlebury College, and you are currently an account executive in data and AI with IBM. So, thanks for joining us, Raffie.
Of course. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Cool. So I guess the first question, so this series explores a number of different professional roles that involve data analytics. Maybe, Raffie, just tell us a little bit about how IBM fits in the AI space and your work as an account executive working there with clients in the data and in the AI world.
Yeah, absolutely. So my focus at IBM is what we call information architecture. So the best way to explain that is anything along the data lifecycle, from data governance to data analytics. Anything that you're doing with data at the enterprise level, I am focused on the tools that help with that. Our focus right now in this space is really on our data fabric. So our solution is called Cloud Pak for Data. And at a high level, what that does is it integrates a number of different data sources, a number of different capabilities into one tool, one platform that people across the enterprise can use. So you don't need a PhD to be able to go in and do the analytics you need to do, from whether that's internal data or data about customers, whatever it may be. So it really simplifies the process, and it can be deployed in a number of different ways. It can be deployed on different clouds. It can be deployed on premise. So really just trying to afford customers a lot of flexibility, knowing that people are in different stages of their cloud journeys and different places in terms of where they've decided to house their existing tools. So my job as an account executive is really to understand my customers, where they are in their journeys, what their needs are as a business, and try to match them with the IBM tools that are going to help them work with their data in the way that they need to. Right.
Do you find yourself kind of, or like, I guess, in what ways do you find yourself using data analytics in your work? Yeah.
So it's a funny question, because I personally don't do a lot of data analytics in my work, but I need to understand how my clients are using it. So for instance, I have some clients who are retailers. So, what do they need to know about their customers? I had a client recently who wanted to revisit the way they were doing their mailing marketing materials and looking at customer data for that. I have another client who is in logistics, and so they are using analytics to plan out, optimize their shipping routes. My clients are all kind of in the commercial space, and so these are big for-profit businesses that are using data in all different ways. So I think for me, I have a bit of a quantitative background from my past experience. Before coming to IBM, I spent 8 years in consulting, first in shopper marketing and then in strategy. And so I did get to work with data in those roles. And so that gives me a little bit of credibility and a little bit of empathy when I'm going to customers to say, I can relate to some of the challenges and opportunities that they're facing.
I guess one question that comes to mind is, what do you find most challenging and most interesting about your work, at IBM right now, and I guess also at previous experiences?
For sure. So I think really it's the human side of it that's most interesting to me. So so much of this role is about, like I said, empathizing and getting inside the client's head and figuring out what's top of mind for them, how we can be a partner to them. I'm new to sales, but in my brief time here, I've come to understand that the field of sales is really moving from a kind of transactional model to a consultative model. And what I mean by that is transactional, meaning, I give you something, you give me something, the end, as opposed to consultative, meaning consulting, like I am becoming a trusted partner, a trusted advisor to you, someone you go to help solve your problems. And that was part of how my consulting background translated, right? So, I know I've never had a sales role with a quota, but for 8 years, I've had experiences where a client has come to me asking them to help figure something out. At the end of the day, that's ideally what I'm here to do, because, building that long-term relationship, maybe it means, losing a small sale in the short term, but it's much better to have that kind of long-term or more in-depth relationship. So, coming back to your question, I do think that is challenging and interesting, because it's just about figuring out people. And yes, you need to know your stuff. You need to have credibility when it comes to the products and the content knowledge. And that's, it's new to me. So that part I'm still figuring out. But I think that, building and maintaining personal connections is the part that I find most interesting.
Cool. Do you find that there's like a big difference in working at a place like IBM, kind of in that sort of consultational role and working with clients versus like your previous experiences at other firms?
Or... Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, IBM employs, I think, 200,000 people. My last organization was 17. And so
big change.
That was part of the appeal, honestly, was I wanted to see what it was like to work within an organization this big. The resources and just the wealth of knowledge and expertise and experience, like every product we have a wealth of, there are tools I can use to help figure out like how I'm going to pitch it and how I'm going to position it. I have technical counterparts who will go with me to client meetings and kind of bring that more technical expertise when we start getting into the weeds. Like the resources available to me are incredible. And with that comes a lot of complication, right? So being new to the organization, I spend a lot of time just trying to find stuff, frankly. Like,
sure.
I know I need something, or just saying, I don't know what is available to me here. So I think that, from what I have heard, it just comes with time, building those internal connections. I'm sure you've heard about kind of internal networking as you're having these kinds of conversations, getting to know folks within IBM and what they do and what they know, where to find the things you need when they need them. That has been a big adjustment. So I think just the scale at which we are operating is very, very different. In addition to, of course, I've worked with different client bases over the years and different kind of points of contact within the organization, depending on the focus of my work.
I guess now shifting focus, I'm curious about your own experience, from campus to career. So at Middlebury, you majored in psychology. Tell us the rest of your story. How did you wind up in consulting? And then from there at IBM?
Yeah. So I, like many Middlebury seniors, entered senior year without a clue what I wanted to do. And as I started poking around, I quickly settled on consulting as a way to kind of build a versatile skill set and gain exposure to a number of different companies and how they operate, in hopes that could kind of inform my own exploration about where I wanted to go next. So I applied to a number of consulting roles, mainly through kind of the on-campus recruiting process. And I landed at a company called Kantar Retail. I think they're just Kantar Consulting now, based in the New York area. And we were focused on shopper marketing for consumer goods companies and retailers. So, think of the Coca-Colas, the Crafts, the Mars, the food giants of the world. They were coming to us primarily to kind of help them build selling stories for retailers. So things like, how to optimize the assortment on the shelf, or how, I was in the research group, so I was designing market research studies to help them understand their shoppers in different regions and for different retailers. So I think that experience gave me a really solid foundation in data analysis and kind of professional communication, putting together presentations, working in teams, just kind of the building blocks of this kind of work. And from there, I became really interested in kind of the nonprofit space and more mission-driven work. And so after 2 years at Kantar Retail, I moved to DC for a role at the 17-person consulting firm. We were called Community Wealth Partners. We were a for-profit firm owned by a nonprofit and working exclusively with nonprofit clients. And so we were really helping, or we strove to help these mission-driven organizations basically do what they do more effectively. So we were not the experts in, say ending hunger or closing the racial wealth gap, but we could bring expertise in, helping them with their leadership, with their culture, with their business model, kind of the nuts and bolts of how their organizations operated. And so there I held a number of different roles, but I both worked with clients, leading those consulting engagements. And I also led a number of internal initiatives as a part of our operations team. So I kind of got a taste of both like big picture organizational strategy and kind of behind the scenes, like I said, the nuts and bolts of how to run an organization. And 6 years there, really just felt like I had learned a lot. It was a great experience. And then out of the blue, a colleague from my first job at Kantar messaged me, any chance you'd be interested in a job in data and AI at IBM? I said, maybe, you're gonna have to tell me more.
Right.
And I think after talking with him, he came from the same background I did. I never would have thought I'd be in sales, not in a million years, but I think talking to him helped me realize, A, how my skills would translate, and B, how this could be just good life experience, a good way to kind of round out the skills I'd been building so far. One thing I forgot to mention, at some point along the way, I had started a part-time MBA. So I was getting my, starting in fall 2019, I was getting my business degree from Boston University in the evenings. So still working on that, got a couple semesters left.
Sure.
So anyway, long and winding route, but now here I am at IBM, and I think I'm really trying to focus on being present for where I am right now and getting the most out of this experience. I think down the road I could potentially see myself in more of a general leadership role, maybe a chief of staff or a COO is in the future, but I think for now I'm just trying to learn sales and wrap my head around this new angle on data analytics and the world of tech, which is brand new to me. So cool. That's my story. So
that's far. A lot. And good luck with the MBA. I hope that works out.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. One question would be like, how do you feel like Middlebury prepared you for this career? Really broad, but yeah. What kind of skills did you pick up there?
So I think from a content standpoint, the class that probably sort of translated most directly was my psychological statistics class, because that kind of gave me some quantitative foundation, and which helped me get the initial consulting job. It was kind of a differentiator in my second consulting job that I had that kind of background. Also having probably the research component of the psych degree was helpful for the consulting work I did, just because so often it involved kind of designing and fielding qualitative and quantitative research and then analyzing the data that came back from that. So like functionally that was relevant. I also just think kind of across the curriculum, Middlebury has such an emphasis on communication. We've got and maybe, my knowledge might be out of date on what the requirements are, but we had to take a couple of writing intensive classes. And from my experience writing, the focus on writing was very much present throughout the curriculum, as well as having to participate regularly in small group discussions, just getting comfortable kind of jumping into the mix of conversation. Maybe your ideas aren't totally fully formed, but you are kind of building these ideas in partnership with the people in the room. And in my experience in things like consulting and sales, being able to kind of develop ideas that way and kind of process verbally, that practice was super important for me.
Okay. And then, like, of those skills, or if you had to pick one, which one do you think was the most valuable in helping get your first role, maybe? Like,
probably
or collection.
Yeah, I think communication skills are huge. There's no question there, and probably no surprise. I think, when it comes to getting the first job, it's such a mindset shift from, I am investing in this educational experience that is going to build and develop me, to now somebody is paying me to solve their problems for them, right? I am now doing them a service. And so I think being able to connect with potential employers, understand kind of what challenges they're facing, seeing things through their lens, and helping them see how I'm going to make their lives easier, I think is really, really important. So, it's tough to say anything beyond communication is most important if I had to pick something.
Sure. And then looking back when you were at Middlebury and you were kind of applying for these roles, like, was there a defining moment for you that made you decide you wanted to go into this, or like what kind of triggered that?
Both of my kind of big career transitions happened because I learned about an opportunity from someone I knew. And obviously that some of that is out of your control. But I do think kind of putting yourself in positions where you will hear about those things to the extent that you can. I mean, the Middlebury network is an immense and enormous privilege. Like, I would be remiss if I didn't say something to that effect.
Sure.
And, for Middlebury students who do have access to that network, just, I when I was on campus as a senior, I was going to info sessions. I was talking to other people about what they were doing. I was just kind of, like I said, I didn't know what I wanted. So I was very much in exploratory mode. And so I think to the extent that you can just talk to people, see what's out there, put yourself in places where you're going to discover new things, because one of those things might end up meaning something down the road.
Cool. Okay. And I guess actually, yeah, another question is, do you know what's next for you professionally? Like, do you have any future plans? Sounds like the MBA is in the works.
Yes. So hopefully I will be done with my MBA this year. Very much looking forward to that. I think, like I said, right now I'm very much just focused on getting what I can out of my experience at IBM. I'm not really a 5 or 10 year plan kind of person. So I think, that remains to be seen. But I'm interested to see where this takes me. Whether I decide, I love sales, I want to, try to pursue a career in sales, or, if I ultimately decide sales isn't for me, but maybe something else at IBM is, or something else entirely, I'm not really sure. But for the moment, I just feel like, it's not every day that you get to just step into a new function and a new industry at the same time. And I'm really trying to appreciate that and make the most of it.
Cool. And in terms of like the MBA, for instance, like, to what extent do you find that education is kind of complementary to your work or helpful, or like why an MBA? I guess, how is that helpful?
Yeah. I decided to do the MBA because I do think it is complementary to the liberal arts experience, in that it is more kind of specifically professionally focused. You learn accounting, you learn finance, you learn marketing. And I felt that it would make me kind of more of a known commodity when it came to apply for leadership roles. So like I said, eventually down the road, I would like to lead an organization in some capacity. Sure. And so from, this was another place where I talked to a lot of people in my life about, it's a big investment of time and money, and I want to do it unless I felt like it would really be worthwhile. And the message that I was getting was that I would be taken seriously for those kinds of leadership roles, or taken more seriously and earlier in my career, because I can say this is knowledge that I bring to the table, this experience that I have. I think when it, obviously I'm still in it, so I can't really speak to, once you have an MBA, what that does for you. But I will say when I was applying to this IBM job, I had taken some classes at business school and that were more tech focused than anything I'd done before. So I had taken a class on IT strategy. I'd taken a class on blockchain, for instance. And so those gave me fodder to talk about in interviews. And I didn't take those classes because I thought one day I will be trying to get a job at IBM. But I do think it is a good opportunity to take coursework that's outside your comfort zone and what complements what you've done before, because you never know what you'll find when you put yourself in that position.
Sure. And then I guess like moving on from that, like what kind of advice would you give to current Middlebury students? If like say somebody wants to get into those kind of roles, whether it's data and analytics or just generally consulting and working with sales. What kind of advice would you have for students?
I think going back to what I said before, just as a student, kind of just making that mindset shift, just continually ask yourself, what do they need? What does this person, this company that I want to work with or work for, what's on their minds? If you're not sure kind of what to highlight about yourself or what to say to them, like maybe that means you don't understand well enough what they are looking for. And so asking those kinds of questions goes a long way. And I think just pursuing things that you're genuinely interested in. And that sounds so obvious, but I think there have been times in my career when I've gotten very caught up in, trying to make myself look appealing or trying to do the thing that looks good on paper. And, when I look at the things that have done the most for my career, it's the people I've met, I've had genuine relationships with. Those are the connections that have mattered. It's not the person I met at a networking event. It's the person I was working on projects with for 2 years. And, so when I think about the work experiences that have not only been the most rewarding, but that have kind of done the most for me in terms of opening doors, it's been the ones where my heart was really in it. And so it sounds very cheesy and maybe obvious, but
I think it's true.
It's when you're in a competitive market, or when you're trying to figure out what you want to do, at least for me, sometimes it was tempting to try to do, the right thing. And the sooner, if you're in a place where you can really ask yourself what motivates me, and it could be different things for different people, right? Is it and at different points in your life. So you could say, right now it's wanting to work on a mission that feels really urgent and motivating. Maybe it's I want a role that gives me some specific experience I don't have right now, but just being honest with yourself about what motivates you and using that as a way to guide yourself, as opposed to trying to guess what somebody else wants from you.
Okay, that's a good point. And I guess like what types of where can students, do you think, expose themselves or kind of get access to some of those opportunities? Like I don't know, I'm thinking sort of, this is very specific, but for instance, I know there's a lot of data reporters that all kind of conglomerate around certain spaces, or so do you think there's kind of an equivalent space, a digital space or something where people kind of go and sort of hire and that sort of things? Or just generally, like, I guess, LinkedIn and those platforms, do you think, or?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, again, being pretty new to this, I'm not super familiar with those kinds of spaces, but I do think LinkedIn is a very good resource. And again, just talking to people, like I was asking someone the other day, how did they decide they wanted to get into their field? And they were like, oh, my friend's dad did this at some point, and that's the only reason I know this job exists, is that I came across someone. So yeah, leveraging your connections wherever you can. I often do come back to that, I guess.
Awesome. Cool. This concludes this episode in the series of exploring careers in data analytics. In closing, I do want to encourage viewers to tune in to get career perspectives and advice from a number of professionals in a broad variety of organizations in our other episodes in the series. And then also want to encourage you to tune in to the other series, which can be accessed through the events and programs tab on the CCI website. So I think that's probably go/CCI for students. Thank you again for watching, and thank you, Raffie.
Thanks, John.